welcome to your poll center for the 2024 elections. This is ABC News GH, and you're watching the Midday News on ABC News. I am Abna Mante. Coming up in the headlines. The minority in Parliament has called on Speaker of Parliament Alban Badwin to reject the recall request made by members from the NPP. Government has promised to fully implement all recommendations made by the Commission of Human Rights and Administrative Justice following its investigations into alleged misappropriation of funds in the National Cathedral project. We will engage an anti-corruption campaigner to establish what more needs to be done. Still to come in the bulletin, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has called out former President Mahama over what he describes as lies on the 24-hour economy, describing him as a failed leader who could not secure a second term due to poor performance. In business, Sono Nasogli Power Ghana Limited has announced the resumption of operations at its 560 megawatt power plant following an emergency funding intervention by the government. But does that resolve the current issues in the energy sector? We will engage some stakeholders and bring you more. On the international front, at least 16 people are missing after a yacht carrying 44 passengers sank in the Red Sea near Mas Alam, Egypt on Monday. Stay with us. We have details of these and more coming up shortly. We are most grateful for your time this afternoon. We are streaming on our YouTube. The channel is ABC News GH. Now let's get into the stories. The NDC Majority Caucus in Parliament has called on Speaker of Parliament Alban Badwin to reject the recall request made by members of Parliament from the NPP. In a memo submitted on Monday, 25th November, and signed by their leader, Dr. Kaso Latuforsen, the caucus argued that the request failed to meet the necessary constitutional and procedural requirements set out in Article 112, Subclause 3 and Standing Order 53, Clause 1 of Parliament. Dr. Forson contended that the NPP MP's call for a recall did not satisfy the required threshold for such a request. He stressed that any recall must adhere to specific legal criteria, which in this case had not been met. In his memo, Dr. Forson urged Speaker Badwin to exercise his discretion and reject the NPP MP's petition, arguing that the request was inconsistent with Parliament's standing orders and that there were no compelling reasons to justify the urgent reconvening of the House. The statement read, "Respectfully, Mr. Speaker, we wish to submit that based on the petitioner's own request, you are not obliged to recall Parliament." On 22nd November, the NPP MPs had petitioned Speaker Badwin requesting the immediate recall of Parliament to address critical government business. Joining us to have a conversation is a parliamentary watcher and communications officer of the Parliamentary Network Africa, Clement Akolo. Good afternoon, Clement. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Clement.
Good afternoon, my sister.
Thank you for your time as always.
Good afternoon, my sister. Thank you for having me.
Clement, with just 10 days to the elections, the NPP and the NDC are still in disagreement with recall of Parliament. At this point, what should be done to cool the heads and also for us to reach a certain compromise?
All right, thank you very much. At this time, that is just 10 days to the upcoming election, the time is not really favorable. It's not really favorable at all for members of parliament to be regrouping at this time before going back to their constituents to prepare for the final lap of the elections. So by this time, we don't think that it is the right time for a recall. Nevertheless, there is a very important bill that we consider to be the reason why they should leave everything and come to Parliament and come and ensure that that transaction is done. We are talking about the budget for next year, and we call it a vote on account. And that particular vote on account, if it doesn't go before next year, we may be having challenges paying workers and running governments actually. So these are the points where we think that if they could spare a few moments to come and do that particular business. But we are also mindful of the fact that because this is not very favorable, there could still be opportunity after the elections to reconsider coming to Parliament to come and transact that particular business, because we reckon the fact that at this time, even if they come, looking at the cost on the state for a recall such as this, the cost on the members of Parliament themselves, and the general cost to the state, when they will not have the attention to actually look at whatever business that will be presented before them, we would think that given the circumstances, the extraordinary circumstances that we find ourselves, then maybe we could consider coming back immediately after the elections to come and transact that very important business.
Clement, after the elections, how feasible will it be to be able to get the parliamentarians to come back? Because we're going to the elections. Obviously, there may be some of the MPs who may not retain their seats, those who are not coming back to Parliament, especially on the side of those who may not be retaining their seat if they are voted out. Do you think that they would spare the time to come back to Parliament to come and look at some businesses such as these?
Yes, we think that if we are looking at the national interest as we have always preached, I think that they should be able to find the time to come in and come and help the final business to go on. And in that particular case, we are looking for a sizable number that would form a quorum and then form a quorum for business to be done. And I think that after the elections, we should be able to get that kind of number to come and transact the business, because we also believe that a large number of them will also retain their seats. And even those who will not retain their seats, they should consider it a national duty to come. At that time, we know that a whole lot of them would have had time, because the elections would have been over. They would not have any hangovers, looking over their shoulders to think about what their opponents are doing in their constituencies in their absence while they are in Parliament transacting parliamentary business. So we feel that it will be better for them to come back after the elections, because even now, if they are recalled, we shudder to think how many of them will actually come to the House to help with the work of Parliament. And even if they come, would they have the presence of mind to be able to transact a good business on behalf of the nation? We think that...
Please go on.
Yeah, so we think that it would be better if we could do it immediately after the election. This is an extraordinary time which calls for extraordinary measures.
But if these factors are available to the NPP and to all of the parliamentarians, why then is the NPP calling for a recall of Parliament? Because if this are avenues or routes for them to explore after the elections, then 10 days before the elections, why do they need Parliament to sit at this time?
Yeah, you understand why the NPP especially would want to recall Parliament, because they have businesses that they would want the government to transact, or to transact on behalf of the government. And the majority leader, or the NPP caucus leader, is the leader of government business, and he must see to the transaction of government business before the floor of Parliament. So you will understand why he would want Parliament to sit at this time, albeit being at a very difficult time, having wasted the previous opportunities, and then now calling for members of Parliament at a very difficult time. But you understand why he would want that to happen at this time, because government business must go on, because there are some transactions that the government thinks that it must transact in order to get its program going, and therefore they would want the House to sit even before the elections.
We're grateful for your time this afternoon, Clement.
Thank you too.
Clement Akolo is the Communications Officer for Parliamentary Network Africa. Away from Parliament issues, the Ministry of National Security has refuted claims made by the Herald newspaper alleging the abduction of Sylvia Bag, the manager of Emirates Airlines at Kotoka International Airport, by officers of the ministry and the National Intelligence Bureau, NIB. On November 22, the police announced an investigation into the alleged kidnapping of Mrs. Ba. According to the police, the victim was reported to have been allegedly taken from the entrance of her house in Accra on November 21, 2024. The police later announced that the woman had been found and is back home with her family. But the Herald report suggested that some operatives in the national security setup were complicit in the Emirates staff members' disappearance. In a press release issued on November 25, 2024, the ministry denied any involvement in the alleged abduction. It described the report as baseless and urged the public to treat the allegations with contempt. The ministry further assured the public that investigations into the matter had been initiated. It emphasized that those found culpable in the alleged incident would face the full extent of the law once the investigations are completed. So we'll have some conversations on the back of this issue so that we can have some clarity on the issue. It has raised many concerns, especially on social media, where many Ghanaians have raised concerns, asking questions how our national security operatives are carrying themselves. So we also await the conclusion of the investigations by the ministry so that to some extent we can have some finality on the matter. Away from that, Dr. Palgrim Boache Dankwa, the spokesperson on governance and security, has said that the government would implement Sraj's recommendations in its report on the National Cathedral. According to him, the government would not interfere in any of the state institutions' work, but rather ensure the right things are done. Dr. Boache Dankwa added that the recommendations by Sraj are in the interest of Ghanaians, so they will not be overlooked. His comments come after Sraj published a report on the National Cathedral requesting a forensic audit into the expenditure so far and a prosecution of the Board of Trustees. He spoke on ABC in the morning.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the desire of government, really, to ensure that these recommendations are implemented to the fullest level. So very, very clearly, because we are not interfering whatsoever with any of the state institutions and what the state is doing. We are ensuring that whatever is being done from state institution A to state institution B is what must be done, because we want the right state institution B from state institution A to state institution B is what must be done, because
Governance expert Professor Ajimandia has proposed that in order not to leave the ongoing National Cathedral to rot, the government and successive governments should consider converting the National Cathedral into an internationally recognized conference facility, since Ghana lacks such infrastructure in the country. Citing other African countries for having similar facilities, Professor Ajimandia argues it is a viable option if governments divert the resources for the National Cathedral. To him, this decision, when considered, will complement the Accra International Conference Center to host more prominent national events. His call is on the heels of an investigative report from SHRAJ on the ongoing National Cathedral project, which has faced significant challenges, including a halt in construction and expose by the MP for North Tongue, Samuel Okujetua Blakwa. Professor Ajimandia made this call on ABC in the morning.
We see this as a major international conference facility with a space for prayers or whatever. That perhaps, I'm sure there will have been this backlash, because the country needs a facility. And if I have my way, I would say this cathedral should be converted into a major conference facility. The Accra conference facility was built in the 1990s. It's run down. It's not even capable of hosting anything of significance. That's why they put that tent behind it to accommodate other kinds of projects. A whole country like Ghana, almost 70 years, we don't even have a facility where 1,000 people can meet. You know?
We'll have conversations about this issue about the National Cathedral following SHRAJ's report. But before we get into the conversation, let's take a look at what one of the board members or one of the members of the trustee board for the National Cathedral, Dr. Joyce Ayi, had to say about the project a few months ago.
What we had said was true. So that's it. How confident are you in raising this amount of money? Considering it was... My confidence is in God. But can we raise this amount of money? Oh, do you know how sometimes even the churches you and I attend, when we start projects, right? Doesn't it take time? It does. You know, sometimes when you start your own building, it takes time. But eventually, you'll finish. What we had said was true. So that's it. How confident are you in raising this amount of money? Considering it was... My confidence is in God. But can we raise this amount of money? Oh, do you know how sometimes even the churches you and I attend, when we start projects, right? Doesn't it take time? It does. You know, sometimes when you start your own building, it takes time. But eventually, you'll finish. What we had said was.
Good afternoon. Vitus Axim is an anti-grabs campaigner. Let's have a conversation with him. Good afternoon, Vitus.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Thank you for your time this afternoon. The report as released by SHRAJ has generated several conversations already. At this point of the report and how far we've come as a nation, what should be done?
I think we need to recover, to recover our losses at least. So first suspend the project and then investigate the operations of the entire secretariat, including that of the boards of the members of the board of trustees. And that is, in trying to recover whatever losses we've made as a country, we need to check, we carry out those investigations so that we can find out what has gone amiss and how much money we've lost, who is responsible, and try to recover them.
If we are trying to recover them, looking at the history of this nation in recovering monies, will we indeed be able to recover any money that has been lost?
Well, it means that there's a failure in our leaders. Because if you investigate and you establish that people have taken money illegally and you can't recover it, there are ways that you can use. First, you can jail them, although that may not lead to recovery of money. But you don't have to look at their assets, bank accounts, property, whatever houses they've got and all that. And then you can see some of them to make up for the money that they have squandered. So as for the recovery money, it's just because there's no commitment to recover the money.
Shrad is also calling for the prosecution of the Board of Trustees. And at this moment, is this the right call? Will we see anything substantial from any prosecution?
Well, that we cannot decide to say now. It is possible that something substantial will come out of the prosecution, depending on how the various institutions handle it. But I hope that in talking about prosecuting the Board of Trustees, it includes the Executive Secretary. Because for me, the Executive Secretary is necessarily the Secretary to the Board of Trustees. So whatever failings that the board has incurred should include, or the executive cannot be exonerated from those failings. So if that's the case, there's no harm in trying. Let's carry out the prosecution, maybe further investigation, and then prosecution, see what happens. Of course, it involves heads of various institutions, religious bodies, and their members are allowed to come saying things, pleading or even demonstrating against the prosecution. But that is why some of us felt that they shouldn't have even come into this in the first place. The fact that it's a cathedral does not necessarily mean that the Board of Trustees will be made up of the heads of some religious institutions, because they are supposed to be held in high esteem and to behave in a way, to act in a way that they will not be subject to any investigation. Unfortunately, they yielded to the temptation to get there. And so, well, I think that let's try. We should be able to make a headway.
For your time this afternoon, Vitus.
You're welcome.
Vitus Axim is an anti-graft campaigner away from the National Cathedral and issues surrounding it. Graduates at the 21st Annual Congregation of the African University College of Communications have been admonished to leverage technology to spearhead change and development as they enter into the job market. The congregation, which saw several students graduate from diploma, degree, and master's courses, celebrated academic excellence while inspiring a new generation of leaders to shape Ghana's future with vision and character. Delivering the keynote address, Justice Nana Berimaya Okodi-Opong, a justice of the Court of Appeal, emphasized the role of technology in building the nation. Andy Opong-Denchi was there and has filed the report.
Of communication, which was held November 23, 2024 in Accra under the theme Leadership and Integrity in Nation Building, charged graduates to be catalysts for transformation in their communities and beyond. Delivering the keynote address, Justice Nana Yao Berima Okodi-Opong, Justice of the Court of Appeal, emphasized technology's vital role in shaping our nation's future. He urged graduates to prioritize technological innovation and continuously upgrade their skills to meet the demand of an evolving world.
And it becomes even difficult to speak in public with humor, because they will take that small part, that anecdote, and blow it up. I see that is all that you said. We should guard against this. Now, these activities are obviously inconsistent with the minimum requirements for and standards of integrity and good character.
The Dean of Kojoyanka School of Communication Studies, Dr. Jane Marino, also admonished students to be innovative with their degrees.
It's rather unfortunate that most of the education we will get rather sends people out to look for employment. But it should be geared toward you initiating your own project, initiating your own business, and then going into the world and do something.
As students walked across the stage to receive their diplomas, degrees, and master's certificates, they carried a legacy rooted in excellence and service. William Jesse, the valedictorian, in his speech noted that the achievements are not personal gains, but for the betterment of the community.
On limits. Today, we step into the world. We carry with us shared responsibility to be ambassadors of truth, hope, transformation. let us remember that our achievements are not just for personal gain, but also for the betterment of our communities and the world at large.
This year's congregation also honored the remarkable vision of Honorable Kwejo Yanka, founder of the African University College of Communication, and his dedication to nurturing new generation of communication. Also honored the remarkable vision of Honorable Kwejo Yanka, founder.
Now into some local stories. The Vice President and flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, stated that the trade fair project will be completed in the next 8 months. He made this statement during a tour of the Trade Fair Center in Accra yesterday. Dr. Bawumia assured Ghanaians that the government is committed to completing the project to bring optimum benefits to businesses and the economy. And the Opondenchi was there and filed this report.
Following the delay in reconstruction of the trade fair project and numerous concerns raised by the indigenous and especially from the Member of Parliament for the constituency, Honorable Rita Odole Sowa, the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has assured Ghanaians that the project will be commissioned in the next 8 months. Addressing the media after the tour of the site, the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, NPP, added that the completion of the project will bring more opportunities to the private sector.
Here, a lot of trade issues are going to be discussed here, a lot of conferences. We see Ghana as a real center for many conferences, for many exhibitions, for many creative arts shows and so on. We already have our December in Ghana and beyond the return and so on. And so you can see so many opportunities that will help grow this economy. And so we are very, very excited. I wanted to come here to see.
Gracing the occasion were some public figures from the creative arts industry who shared their views on how beneficial the project will be to the industry after completion.
You can see from the back there, as a creative, we need the open news. We need such places to help us exhibit, what Ghana has to show to the world. So this is a good initiative. Most of us have been wanting this thing for long, and now, as you can see, it's in the making. Or even the country as a whole.
Obviously, it will benefit all of us as a country and as an artist. Why am I saying this? Because this is an infrastructure that builds a nation. It's a trade fair where we get to exhibit in Ghana. We get to exhibit the things that we have. And then it also serves as a recreational center for our children.
Speaking on the sidelines of the Vice President's visit, the CEO of the Trade Fair Center, Agnes Adu, noted that the government has given the master plan of the project to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement to hold office at the center.
But as His Excellency Nana Dankwa said, he said, protection of the human life is paramount. We can save the economy, right? We can bring investors back, but undoubtedly, we cannot save the human life. So the project stopped. Even around the world, convention centers around the world were converted into one, right? So it made no sense to start building a new convention center before. So those were the two main, I would say, challenges that we had to clear. As I was speaking earlier, I said that we had to clear a couple of things, right?
Let's take a quick break. We will be back with the news.
All be lie.
Thank you, boss. See you next week. Yo, where do my passport? Where is my passport? Yo, but I want to Waba.
Who's Maba?
And then
give me my passport. You made me pay for express for 24 hours, and yet it's not in.
You told me that you are telling me this. What's going on? Hello.
This man here has taken my money. That within 24 hours, he'll do my passport for me.
Oh, see, that's the same thing applies to me. He told me last night. He's telling me this week.
Process. That's what they do.
Yeah. Oh, madam. Please relax. I'll get for you in 24 hours.
Hey, Goroma. So you never change? Eh? You get passport for someone within 24 hours, Madam Obwa. See, the normal working hours is 9 to 5. Not 24 hours, I'm fat. You guys have made a very big mistake by trusting these people. Now, through digitalization, passport application has been made so easy. Now, you don't need to stress yourself and join any long queue for your passport. All you have to do is to log on to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs website and begin your application. By buying a passport application voucher online. Simple and easy. And very soon, all you need to get your passport will be your Ghana card. What is it true? Obisa. It is possible.
Yes, so I didn't know this. I feel like this.
Come on.
You're welcome back. You're still watching your election poll center. This is the Midday News. Into more stories, the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has commissioned some 1,072 affordable housing projects constructed by the Tema Development Company, making the completion of the phases 1 to 3 of the initiative complete. The brief event held on Monday, November 25, also saw the Vice President's breaking ground for phase 4 of the project, which is set to deliver an additional 800 units, bringing the total number of homes in the enclave to 1,872. Speaking at the event, he highlighted the government's commitment to addressing Ghana's housing deficit through a comprehensive and innovative approach.
Really a privilege and an honor to stand before you today as we gather to commemorate another milestone in our shared efforts to tackle Ghana's most pressing challenges. One of Ghana's most pressing challenges, access to affordable housing. It was abandoned, literally, between 2009 and 2016, and was resuscitated and reactivated by the new board and management, seated and reactivated by the new.
Away from that, human rights lawyer and member of parliament for the Medina constituency, Honorable Francis Javier Sosu, has called for the sensitization of empowering women to confront any discrimination they face. Speaking on the back of the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, he disclosed that some modest progress has been made in the pursuit of protecting women. However, the lawmaker bemoaned the lack of dedicated efforts of state agencies in helping to educate the public on the elimination of violence against women.
To what extent has these local legislations actually helped to resolve the issues of violence against women? When we come to Ghana, I would say that we have made some modest progress because moving from the enactment of the content of the Children's Act to recently the passage of the Affirmative Action Bill are all tools that are supposed to protect women. And you recall the even passage of the anti-witchcraft bill last year. And these are like wild successes in terms of legislation. What is missing clearly is some dedicated effort either on the part of the states and state agencies like MCCE to get to the ground, to continue to educate our people, increase sensitization. There are many of our young women who would be are violated on a daily basis, but they are not even empowered to go out there to confront their assailants, because sometimes
Still on Ghana's fight for the elimination of violence against women, convener of the Affirmative Action Coalition, Sheila Menka-Premu, expressed concern about the high rate of violence against women in the country. According to her, statistics of violence against women in the country is staggering, prompting the need for promotion of gender equality by providing a system that progressively addresses society's inequalities.
The incidence of violence against women in Ghana is quite high, and there's a need to address it. I know that in 2016, violence against women, it occurs in different areas, different spheres. In the private sphere, which is domestic violence, and then in the public sphere as well, which is what happens in the workplace, in schools, and in society in general. And a 2016 study that was undertaken by the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, together with the Statistical Service, this was on prevalence and incidence of domestic violence. It was quite high. So it indicated that 27% of women had been victims of violence against gender-based violence in the last 2 years before the study. And that is quite high. That means almost like a third. So the incidence is high. And I know that when you consider it in other areas of life, within the workplace, at the community level, in schools, it's also equally high. So it's quite a high incidence in Ghana. The law promotes gender equality by coming up with a system for a progressive way in which it should address gender.
11 days to the 2024 general elections. We are your election poll center. Let's take some election-related stories. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has criticized former President John Dramani Mahama, describing him as a failed leader who could not secure a second term due to poor performance. He claimed that unlike other past presidents who are remembered for their significant contributions, Mr. Mahama's legacy is tied to the frequent power outages that plagued his administration. Speaking at the commissioning of the Setrafram Plains District Hospital in Jobonso on Monday, 25th November, President Akufo-Addo took aim at the National Democratic Congress's proposed 24-hour economy policy, questioning its feasibility under Mahama's leadership.
Jerry Rawlings had a second term. John Ajekun Kufuor had a second term. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo had a second term. The only one who was not given a second term was John Dramani Mahama. There's a reason for it. It was a Nejuma and saw Ghana for any and nothing Yaman quite ambegu. Then also person baby. What is he coming to do? 24-hour economy. You couldn't keep the lights on for 12 hours a day here, Dumso time, when you were president, and you're coming to give us a 24-hour economy. How are you going to do that?
Away from the MPP, the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, has attributed Ghana's 35% decline in petroleum production to government corruption, which he says has driven away major investors like ExxonMobil to countries such as Ivory Coast. Speaking to the Western Regional House of Chiefs in Sekondi during his 3-day tour of the region, Mahama alleged that some government officials demand exorbitant sums from petroleum investors for oil blocks, undermining confidence in the industry. He contrasted the current state of the sector with the growth recorded under his administration, emphasizing that corruption has eroded the progress his government achieved.
Frank, where are you to my Midday? I just said, Nagamana, almost 170,000 barrels of oil a day. We know, can say, oil production, I come from by almost 35%. And also, I can't in Juma, you did almost oil companies. Almost normal year subcontracting, Bebri attitude, Bebri, so Juma, almost year no.
Residents in Botiano, English Yamanfum have raised concerns over the current hardship and rising prices of goods and services, unemployment, and poor road network within the municipality. My colleague Samuel Esel interacted with the residents, and they called on the MP of the area to up his game as elections approach.
So we need change. If there is somebody who can come to make the change, then fine, it's enough. I think that's all we can talk about here. That's all that we all are looking forward to.
Sugar 47 cedis, needle 1 cup 20 cedis, container 1 pack 70 cedis. One share is that 20. One was very heavy. I am one of them. If you say yes, yes, everyone your money there. I'm not for mine. They year in your day, into your year. They just use your presentation. People talk to that. Who is that 2,000? Who means so big? And to say, what would you do? The Bible says, yes, free education. Free education, you look like yes or no. A chance, if it's not here, it's a draft better. I'm not the idea there. I'm not for trouble. Yes, you are so like that. Normally, the wire fire is already. Now, baby, I did those who would definitely don't do any now. I think it's a I said, any other power with you.
The Electoral Commission has assured the public of enough security arrangements for the conduct of the 2024 general elections. The chairperson of the commission, Jean Mensah, stated this when she received a delegation from the National Election Security Task Force led by the Inspector General of the Ghana Police Service. Speaking at the meeting, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Jean Mensah, stated that the EC has developed an aid memoir to help them in their work, explaining that the aid memoir is a basic instruction on key aspects of their work, which will be posted right from the polling stations to the constituencies, regional and national probation centers, and across all the various coalition centers.
The various election observation missions will develop aid memoirs which are basic instructions on key aspects of our work. And the aid memoirs are instructions that will be posted on the walls of the various centers, right from the polling stations to the constituency, regional and national coalition centers. There will be basic instructions that will govern and guide us in terms of the requests for recounts and recollations and so on across the various collation centers. The aid memoirs will also focus on issues such as the correction of errors on the various forms should such arise. And so you should witness this. I believe when you go to our various centers, you see these instructions posted on the walls which provide clarity to areas that hitherto were considered gray areas.
That's all for our election-related stories here on the Pole Center. Up next, business news. Asogli Power Ghana Limited has announced the resumption of operations at its 560 megawatts power plant following an emergency funding intervention by government. The plant, which had been shut down due to financial constraints, resumed operations on Monday, November 25, 2024. In a press release, the company expressed gratitude to the Minister of Finance, Mohammed Amin Adam, and the Minister for Energy, Herbert Krapper, for facilitating the release of emergency funds to address the plant's critical financial needs. The company revealed that it submitted the final version of its restructuring term sheets to the Ministry of Finance and the Electricity Company of Ghana in August 2024. The company expects the terms to be finalized and signed soon, ensuring stability and reliability in Ghana's energy sector. The company emphasized the importance of ECG adhering to the terms of its power purchase agreement, urging the utility provider to diligently fulfill its financial obligations. It further apologized for the impact of its recent shutdown, which disrupted power supply across parts of the country. The resumption of operations at the 560 megawatts power plant is expected to boost electricity supply across Ghana and reduce the strain on the national grid. And that's all for business this afternoon. Let's take some sports news. Ghana Stars have confirmed the mutual termination of coach Yahweh Champon's contract following a string of disappointing results in the ongoing Ghana Premier League season. The Champions' position became untenable after the team's 2-0 home defeat to Kotoko in match day 12. And the Champions' leadership, Ghana Stars, managed just 2 wins, 6 draws and 4 losses in 12 matches, leaving them in the 13th position on the league table with 12 points. The club is expected to name a new coach by the end of the week as they seek to turn their season around. Up next is some international stories. 16 people are missing after a yacht carrying 44 passengers sank in the Red Sea near Marsa Alam, Egypt on Monday. Rescuers saved 28 people, mostly with minor injuries. The missing include 12 foreign nationals with passengers from the US, Germany, and other countries. Authorities say the Sea Story capsized within minutes, likely due to a massive wave. Some passengers were trapped in their cabins, and search and investigations are currently ongoing. Before we take some entertainment stories, let's take some local stories. As the country heads into the elections, Ghanaians have been advised to consider the integrity of the various presidential candidates to inform their voting decisions. The municipal chief executive of Ibuapa South, Babs Bodinga, has urged that the credibility of the presidential candidates in this upcoming election should be a factor in voter decision. According to him, the various candidates vying for the 2024 elections have integrity levels that should be tested by the voters, which to him will make Dr. Bawumia the best candidate to lead the nation.
Some of the burden, any security in terms of yeli sika enantino above from ebuapa. So this too, then don't forget about free SHS because in my municipality there's no single even in the hamlet ubekwa uyefibia wala kosko over second cycle from MPP Bawumia's any Nanado or Moody Free SHS by until he's working and he's working well. Until you're all kind a share amount for crime. That's the next next president Bawumia Ebetwanya Nanado and Kwalano Amwawi SS. Here say a obekwa probio oye juma and obekwa kojina aye surety mount ubenya loan snitch loan education transfer loan wow national health insurance card and nebeye guarantor. You can see a nipa dudua obe. You can see the bed near every awful because any obia.
Let's take some entertainment stories. Renowned actor Denzel Washington has shared his concerns about social media, saying it distorts reality and pressures young people in ways past generations didn't face. Washington, who doesn't use social media, criticized its influence, saying, "There were no 9 million opinions every moment of my day. People liked you, then suddenly they hate you." He said this on Paul Pascal's podcast.
I pray for your generation because we did not have to deal with what you've had to deal with. And it's our fault for putting it in your hands. There were no 9 million opinions of every moment of my day.
No
and
documentation.
People that like you and then suddenly they hate you and you don't understand
gross.
why. And I never had, I don't even know what you call it, an Instagram account. Never had one. Link, what's the other name?
LinkedIn.
Twitter. I don't have any of those things.
You don't have a LinkedIn?
Call it an Instagram account. Never had one. Link, what's the other name?
LinkedIn.
Twitter. I don't have any of those things.
You don't have a LinkedIn?
No.
That's all for the midday news on ABC News GH. This is your poll center for the 2024 general elections. But before we go, let's take a recap of our headlines. Parliament has called on the minority in Parliament has called on the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Gbadin, to reject the recall request made by members of Parliament from the New Patriotic Party. Government has promised to fully implement all the recommendations made by the Commission of Human Rights and Administrative Justice following its investigations into alleged misappropriation of funds in the National Cathedral project. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has called out former President Mahama over what he describes as lies on the 24-hour economy, describing him as a failed leader who could not secure a second term due to poor performance. Sana Nasagli Power Ghana Limited has announced the resumption of operations at its 560 megawatt power plant following an emergency funding intervention by government. On the international front, at least 16 people are missing after a yacht carrying 44 passengers sank in the Red Sea near Marsa Alam, Egypt,